All right, let's rock and roll here. Um, it's Thursday, and actually, I'm making this Wednesday night. Um, from the weather forecast, I think you'll be here on Thursday at school, but I'm not 100% positive, because if we get all that ice and stuff that they're talking about before morning, it's conceivable that they could say, you know what, it's just not safe for people to be driving on the streets. That could definitely happen. If I had to bet, I would bet that you will be in school on Thursday and you won't be in school on Friday. With that in mind, I strongly encourage you to bring home anything that you think you might need over the weekend for any of your subjects, because you're probably not going to be here Friday if we get the 18 inches of snow they're talking about. If, but it's all if. So you're better off having it and not needing it than needing it and not having it. Okay, so okay, I just want to make sure you guys understand how this course is going to continue to roll along as we go. Okay, we started out um, with the story Horseman in the Sky, and that was really to get you tuned into the idea of doing more than just paying attention to the details of the story, but also paying attention to you as you were reading, being an active reader. That's what we want you to do, is be an active reader. Okay, that's the biggest thing we're shooting for here, is to be an active reader. But we want to make sure that you're going to be reading the things because we want to talk about them. And that's why, of course, Ben is writing a paper for us today, and we'll have somebody different writing a paper pretty much every day. Everybody will get their opportunity. If you're really lucky, you may get two opportunities, okay, um, to write a good paper so that we kind of have a discussion platform to start from with all of you on the same page, okay? So, that's why Ben's doing that. And alphabetically, he's the first name on the list. So what the heck? It makes sense that he went first, okay? Um, okay, but Ben had read the stuff. His quiz indicated that he had read the stuff. So that's a good thing. Okay. So after that first story, trying to get you tuned into being an active reader, our next step was to look at one of the simplest things in the pieces that make up fiction. And one of the simplest things, one of the things that we all know about, is irony. Okay. So we talked about irony. And irony is kind of a building block uh, of literature that's kind of fun to read, where you really don't know what's going to happen until you get there. And so it's a surprise kind of thing. Sometimes it's a shock kind of thing. Okay. Um, and so, in looking at irony, we looked at Appointment in Samara, okay, and that story just seeps irony. There is so much irony in that story. Um, Pretty much everything that happens is irony. And so, it's a fun story to tune in on irony, okay? And there's still a lot of things we could talk about in there, but we want to be on to something else. Okay. So the next story we talked about was the story of an hour. And of course, that was another story that was filled with irony. So these two were two things where irony was really important in the story of an irony. In the story of an hour, we saw that irony in Mrs. Mallard getting the message that her husband had died. We didn't know at that point that it was irony. We didn't know that. Um, so we just go with it. And so she goes up to her room and locks herself in her room, and then wow, something totally different from what we'd expect. And so we have a kind of dramatic irony going on there, because we, as the readers in the story, know more about what's really happening than Mrs. Mallard's sister and then the people downstairs. So we know more about that because, ironically, Mrs. Mallard is not up there weeping and gnashing her teeth and saying, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to go on with life without my husband?" She's saying, "Wow, I have freedom! Yay, yay, yay!" Kind of pretty surprising stuff, you know. And so there's an irony in her just doing that, but there's an irony in our knowing it and nobody else but Mrs. Mallard and we, the readers, knowing it. So we have kind of a double irony there. Okay. We also talked about, irony being sarcasm, saying the opposite of what you mean. Um, we used for an example, of course, our good friend Dominic here, who in fact, ironically, he forgot how to come back for the second half of the class on Tuesday. Um, so a certain irony in that, and in that he got caught, and Dr. Newton was aware that he was hanging out down in the cafeteria instead of coming back to class. Okay, so there's a certain amount of irony there too. Okay. So anyway, okay, so we've delved deeply into irony. Now, does that mean we're done with irony? No, but it's not going to be the real focal point of stories as we go on. It certainly, because it appears in almost everything we read, we will be able to say, yes, this is ironic because, okay, and so irony, we'll see irony all semester long. Okay, but moving forward from there, we got into plot structure, and I deliberately chose a story that did not have a straight line plot. Because you can turn on your television and watch a show that has a straight line plot all the time. The story goes from here to here, and that's it, But plot is a collection of events done by the way characters behave. Okay, that's really what plot is, and the whole plot thing has to tie together. It has to all work towards something, but it doesn't have to be a straight line. And so I wanted to make sure you understand that it doesn't have to be a straight line. And so I chose a story, A Rose for Emily, that is not a straight line story at all. Okay, it's a story that goes in a big circle, and so well, let's say it starts and ends at the same place. So in a sense, it goes in a circle, but really, you start here, and then you're over here, and then you're here, and then you're here, and then you're back up here again. So we have all these incidents on the way that help us see who Emily is. Other than the ending, we do have some sequence to plots, but we're not really sure that all of those incidents that happen are really in a sequence either, And so that's why I asked you to try to create a timeline so you could kind of figure out by what happened, where they might have been. But there really is no hard and fast to where they might have been, other than the ending and the beginning being at the same place, But a lot of the things on the way, we don't know. It's your guess as good as mine, and that's getting involved in literature. Okay, so we've talked about two of the major elements in literature, irony and plot, and each week for a while we'll be looking at short stories and delving into another element in literature. Okay, but we aren't going to forget about irony. We aren't going to forget about plot, but really we'll be focusing specifically on another individual thing each week. Okay, so as we go forward, that's what we're going to do. So I don't want you to get these all jumbled together. I want you to realize that really every good piece of literature is going to contain all of the things we talk about, but what we're doing is allowing you to personally get involved and then giving you things to kind of think about as you read through these pieces of literature. So what happens in the story? Sure, it's important. Was it all that important that you picked up on the fact that Homer was gay? It was easy to miss that, and actually everybody missed it because it was just part of one line. It was said that he preferred the company of men. That was easy to miss, and so that's okay. And in fact, some of you didn't do so well on that quiz, but we're going to have one person answer one question And if he gets that one question right, okay, um, then I'll change all your grades to 10 on that instead of the sixes and sevens and nines that you got because nobody picked up on the fact that Homer was gay. Okay. Um, so anyway, we'll talk about that in a little while here, and we're going to have Ben um, kind of lead discussion in rolling out his paper. We're also, of course, going to talk about the timelines that you created for us, and I'm going to give you back the quizzes that you did the other day. Um, and some of you did pretty well. You know, I was really quite pleased with what some of you did. Okay, and some of you didn't do so well. You know, so this is where we are. Again, you know, we're working toward a grade so that next year, when you're full time in college, this will be one less course that you have to be concerned about taking, and you have to earn either an A or a B for the grade to transfer. So you know you can't just muddle through because if you continue to mess up quizzes and papers, and we'll have tests. You know, we'll have some tests during the course of the semester too. Um, and you get a C, then most colleges aren't going to transfer a C. So it's really important. And of course, all of you are more than capable of earning A's and B's. You know, you're all capable of being A to A plus students. So that's what we're going to aim for. So anyway, that's where we are. Um, and we already have 3 weeks of class in, you know, and we have a total of I think 15 weeks of class, so we're 20% of the way done already, you know. So we're cruising along. But anyway, that's where we are, and so let's move on.